So, hey, hi everyone. I have Kunal Mehta with me. Kunal Mehta is the Global Director for Marketing and Communications with the company DSM Nutritional Products. He is very active when it comes to his LinkedIn profile. He's very, you know, I've been in touch with him since past 2.5 years, and he has been quite a cooperative person and very helpful in whatever kind of mentorship or whatever you know I face trouble. So I welcome you, Kunal, to our uh, in front of our viewers.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Akash.
So Kunal, could you briefly introduce about yourself, and then we can go ahead from there?
Yeah, sure. Well, you introduced me. So I am the Global Director for Marketing and Communication at DSM. I'm in Switzerland. I've been doing marketing for the last 18 years now. Before DSM, I spent quite some time with Nestle, first in India and then in Switzerland. And before that, I spent a few years with Britannia, the biscuit company in India. So yeah, that's been my career so far. And I am really passionate about marketing, about branding. Those are the topics I really like to talk about. So I'm really interested in what we're going to discuss today.
So yes, that's our topic today: personal growth in digital era. So we discussed with our viewers a couple of questions, and the first and foremost, the important question that came is, regardless of what you do and who you are professionally, how important do you feel is personal growth, and why is it so?
Well, I think personal growth is important for every person. And you don't have to be a professional to be going after personal growth. You could be chasing personal growth irrespective of whether you're a student, a homemaker, a founder, or a career person. I think it's also important to mention that personal growth has many different dimensions. You could be going after, personal growth in terms of professional growth, but in terms of financial growth, emotional growth, physical growth, spiritual growth. There are so many different layers and dimensions to it. So I think what's important is that for people to understand that which sphere of life they want to really grow in, and then they should go after that. And sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm not interested in personal growth," and I say this: that if you say that you're not interested in personal growth, either you've not understood what personal growth really means, or you're really living a stagnant life. Because what's the point of living life if you're not growing in some dimension or the other, almost on a daily basis? So for me, personal growth is extremely important. And I think one way to do that is to instill a growth mindset within you rather than, sitting with a fixed mindset. That's how I would sum it up, that personal growth is extremely important for everyone, whichever field you're in. It doesn't matter. It is part of your evolution and your growth in your life.
Right. I completely agree to it. So following that question, another question which popped up my mind, so it's my personal question, is that since you're the marketing and communications director of a very big company, how do you make sure that Kunal as an identity does not fade out in front of the brand that you're working for? Because managing both your company's brand as well as your personal brand are two different things, and very difficult when you're working for a very big giant and you are at a decision-making position. Then how does your personal branding is maintained in that way?
I think this is an important question, because I think one mistake that people make is that they start associating themselves and their own personal brand with just the work that they do. I realized this quite early, that each one of us is more than just the work that we do. We have so many other dimensions to our personality. Of course, a large part of your personal brand does get created based on the work that you do, both within your company as well as outside. But I think what is important to remember is that you are so much more than just your work. Let me give you my own example. I do a post on LinkedIn almost every day, but I don't just write about my company every day. I talk about various topics that I'm interested in, and that allows people to see me as Kunal, as a personal brand beyond just my work. Even in all conversations with my colleagues, it's not limited to work. My point of view, and this helps them to see me as who I am. Everyone, that if you want to maintain a personal brand, yes, that's important.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. So, how has personal branding changed when you compare it with the digital era, with the current era, and the pre-digital era?
Personal brands were usually created by big stars, celebrities, or sports people. Hey, the game has changed. There are so many different platforms that anyone can create and build a personal brand. You have that opportunity from all these platforms. What is important is that people can create a personal brand as long as they're willing to put in the hard work, they're willing to take in some time to either create content or curate content or provide value through the point of view that they have. The people who are successful today with the personal brands are the ones who are consistent. That's extremely important. Who are patient and who've decided what their niche is going to be. That's an important element. I think those people have a clear strategy and a framework in place. And the foundation of that is really authenticity. When you want to build a personal brand, it's extremely important to be authentic. So the ones that are successful today are really following this approach of being authentic, having a clear framework, and knowing where and how they want to, come across. So that's how really they're building their personal brand.
Right, right, right. That's a great insight. So, recently seeing the paradigm is shifting more from world wherein the employee mentality is shifting to an entrepreneur mentality. How do you see this shift happening, and what's your take on this?
Akash, I come from a Marwari business family myself. And the entrepreneurial zeal has always been there within me. Let me start by my own example. Right from my first job, every decision that I've made, I've always thought that what would I do if this was my own business? So whether it is negotiations with suppliers or ad agencies, doing advertising spends, even travel expenses, I've always thought about it that how would I do this if I was the entrepreneur of this business? I see that happening a lot now. And the simple reason for that is that the number of startup companies that have come across, it has increased tremendously over the last few years. Now, we all need to realize that startup companies do not have big, crazy budgets. So therefore, they want to bring people on board who have this entrepreneurial mindset, who can chase tight timelines and deadlines, who can deliver in a cost-conscious way. And this has led to people being more towards an entrepreneurial mindset rather than employee mentality. That's the paradigm shift that I'm seeing, and I think this will continue to increase over the coming years.
So, is entrepreneurship only spending money in the business, or is it a mentality?
Is absolutely a mentality. I think money is just a very small part of it. It is about the decisions that you make. It is about the choices that you do in terms of business. I think, like I said, when you are deciding that you are running the business as your own, every decision that you make, it could be how you want to grow your teams, what strategy you want to deploy, how do you want to expand your market. All of these are entrepreneurial decisions or entrepreneurial mindset decisions. So it's not limited to money alone. There's so much more that comes into play in this kind of mindset.
So now coming back to your work profile, since you yourself are in communication, so what's your take on communication? How do you define communication for our audience? Is it because for many people, communication is just limited to the way they talk or the way they speak? Is it only that, or is it the entire personality that they carry?
I would answer this based on the work that I do on brands. I think the simple way to answer this is that communication is all about delivering your message to your audience in a way that they are able to understand at a time when they're willing to receive it and through channels and platforms that they are using. Now, it doesn't matter whether this is a brand or an individual. This principle, this fundamental doesn't change. What is important is that every piece of communication should try and build some sort of emotional connection between the giver and the receiver. That is important. And good communication either inspires or informs or educates or entertains or does a combination of all of these. And all good communication are actually built on a strong foundation of powerful storytelling. So things like visuals, text, body language, music, sound, all of them play such an important role in communication. I think people don't realize it, that there are many different aspects that come together to form part of good communication. So for me as a communication person, this is what I think about, whether I'm looking at an advertising piece, a film, or the way I communicate myself. These are important factors that I look into.
So it is way beyond what your language is, what languages do people, even if you do not understand the language, but the you know the goal is fulfilled. That's our communication, right?
I think it's about connecting with the receiver. How do they receive the message? How do they feel? And feelings go beyond words. It's a sensation. So it's not only about language, and it's all the other things that I said which come into play. So that's really important in communication.
Great, great, great. What is that one advice that you'd like to give our audience in terms of maintaining their personal growth in this digital era?
Oh, well, one advice that I can give, or I would like to give to people, is to really spend time in understanding themselves better and be clear on which dimension they want to really grow in. For any topic that you choose, the digital world is filled with thousands of options, videos, articles. It's extremely important to take the time to be able to go through the noise and the clutter and find the right ones that resonate with you, that align with your values, and ultimately that help you to grow. I mean, we are speaking about personal growth now. If we talk about personal growth, and if someone is interested in growing their personal brand, which is different than personal growth, it's important for them to be clear on how they want to position themselves to the external world. People need to have clarity on what domains, what fields they want to build their thought leadership on, and they want to be seen as experts on. And what is important, which I said earlier as well, only when people are authentic will they be able to connect with their audiences, and they will be able to enjoy what they do. People shouldn't get too stressed about new and emerging platforms. Every few years, the platforms keep changing, new platforms keep coming out. I think what's important is that platforms will come and go. As long as you're being true to yourself, as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, that will start reflecting who you are. And as a result, you will continue to grow as a person. You will continue to grow as a personal brand. That's my advice. It's not easy to follow. I myself struggle with it sometimes, but I think if one piece of advice I can give, this would be my advice to everyone.
Great. So I strongly believe that everyone, whether irrespective of what job he or she is doing, or if he or she is studying, they are selling at some point of time. So, and I have read this book by Daniel Pink named "To Sell is Human." So that I feel, that way I can connect with you, that yes, it is very, very essential to have empathy for in whatever you are doing, so that you can build your personal brand. So what do you think about it?
So the question is that, is everyone selling? Is that the question?
Yes.
Well, I think you can give it whatever name you want to give. These are just labels. Someone will say that everyone is selling. Someone will say that everyone is communicating. Someone can say that everyone is doing marketing. I think it really doesn't matter how you want to define this, as long as people know that what they want to achieve out there, what they want to deliver, and not everyone should be going after creating a personal brand. It's not necessarily that everyone needs to or wants to create a personal brand. Some people don't like to go out there and be seen as selling every now and then, and that is fine. I think, like I said, each individual is different, and they have to be true to themselves. They need to really define who they are and how they want to come across. And then it really doesn't matter that whether you're selling. Sometimes selling can also have negative connotation when you talk about yourself as an individual. So it's also about how do you want to project yourself. Selling is one way to say it. Communicating is another nicer way to say it. Marketing is another way to say it. So as long as you are building a personal brand, you can call it in any way or form you want. Since you mentioned Daniel Pink, I must say, and it kind of goes with what we're talking here. He's written a recent book called, No Regrets, or Using Regrets for Good. And it's an interesting dimension where he talks about how people come up with regrets and disappointment when they think back on their lives in hindsight. And I think personal brand has a very strong connection to it. A lot of people who believe that they would like to build a personal brand, the reason they're not able to build it is because they don't even take that first step. They don't even start doing things. They don't even start communicating. And then a few years down the line, they say, oh, I missed the podcast bandwagon. I missed the blogging opportunity. I missed this, I missed that, simply because they didn't start. So I think this is Daniel Pink's latest book about using regrets for good. So while you can take the regret and kick yourself, or you can take the regret and actually get into the action mode, because
Great.
now is the time.
Yes, thanks a lot. I was not aware about this book. So what, even I'm very fond of books, and I do not get time to read them, but I do listen to them. So I yes, the main motive is how you take advantage of the books available. So I listen to them. So what book do you advise for the viewers to listen to or to read, if for digital for personal branding in this digital era, or in their normal life? What is that one book that you would generally advise people to read?
My answer will be a little different here. I'm as busy as you are at the moment, and I have a little baby at home, so I'm not even getting as much time to read as I would have liked to. But every now and then, when I'm driving, I listen to a lot of podcasts. But one of my favorite podcasts is the Tim Ferriss Show. The reason and the reason I mention that is because the kind of guests that Tim Ferriss brings on his show are so different, so unique, so diverse. It opens my mind to the different horizons, the different subjects that exist out there. And the beauty of that is that when you're listening to a podcast like that, you start forming your own opinions, your own conclusions. And then when you're communicating, when you're trying to build your own personal brand, in some way that starts coming. You heard something from one guest, you heard something from another guest, you start making those connections. So it's not about that one book. I like to actually keep getting different experiences. And by just listening to that one podcast, he has guests right from an Arnold Schwarzenegger to a Hugh Jackman to an Eric Schmidt of Google to Michael Dell of Dell, so to sports people. So he has many different personalities coming in. Recently, he had Morgan Housel, if you heard of Morgan Housel, who wrote The Psychology of Money. And it's a 3-hour podcast. But it's filled with insights and nuggets. So for me, this is my recommendation. If there's one podcast that people should listen to, the Tim Ferriss podcast is something that influences me a lot. I really enjoy it. And I think that it also helps me to build my personal brand even further.
Okay, perfect. So that's great. That I hope my viewers would have taken some insights. I definitely have taken a few insights from this, and I would start listening to the podcast that you just referred. Kunal, I would really like to thank you a lot for your time, for giving your valuable time for our viewers and for me, and always mentoring me the way you have in the past few years. Anything else that you would like to add from your end, Kunal?
I would like to, first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I really hope that your viewers take something out of this. Like I said, it's an ongoing journey. All of us are on that journey, whether it's creating your own personal brand or personal growth. I strongly believe that personal growth is much more bigger and important than personal brand. Personal growth is more internal. It comes from within. Personal brand is more external, what you want to project to people outside. I think what is more important is that how do you want to grow yourself? So personal growth for me is much more important than personal brand. So if I can tell one thing to your viewers, I think find those avenues where you want to grow yourself personally, and then the personal brand will get created on its own.
Great. So that was it, guys. Thanks a lot for your time, Kunal. I would not take much of your time. I know you have to go to pick up your baby from the daycare. So have a nice day, Kunal. Take care, and it was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you very much.